Hey folks, welcome back to Amongst the Pixels, a show where we talk about important subjects in video games only to be disputed by someone in the comment section. Recently, the Olympics ended, and once again we successfully done enough sports to keep the Titans in Tartarus, so Mount Olympus is safe for 4 more years. Or whatever the actual reason we do it. Naturally, people are trying to connect any subject to the Olympics, and video games are no exception. Now, with the rise of eSports, many people are wondering, will we see competitive gaming at the 2020 Olympics? Competitive gaming has been around almost as long as video games themselves. It's been around ever since the first arcade gamer got the high score in Space Invaders and memorialized their accomplishment with their initials, ASS. And I can already hear the older generations groaning at the thought of video games at the Olympics. And if you are one of them, hey, congrats on learning how to use a computer. But this isn't really an absurd question when the Olympics have had events like croquet, tug-of-war, and live pigeon shooting. It almost feels inevitable for the Olympics to finally join us in the digital age. Esports players have proven to push their bodies to the limits for their respective sports. Many players practice up to 50 hours a week to stay competitive. And it's been reported that players have the reaction time equal to fighter pilots. And we clearly have enough games to choose from to enter the Olympics with. Hell, even a Pong match would be more entertaining to watch than an indoor cycling race. And perhaps people will actually watch the Olympics if esports were included. For the 2016 Olympics, you know, the one that just ended, NBC had an average of 27 million viewers. Which sounds pretty impressive alone, but is kinda sad when you compare it to literally any other sports ball event. For instance, the 2016 Super Bowl had about 114 million viewers, and the NBA Finals had about 30 million viewers. Both of those are dwarfed by the 335 million viewers the League of Legends World Championships had in 2015. Granted, yes, that 335 million counts for all countries watching over a 4-week period, but it just goes to show you that more people than your smelly cousin watch esports. At this point, the question isn't are the Olympics ready for esports, but are esports ready for the Olympics? Now, I will defend video games and competitive gaming until the Reaper catches up with me, but dear God, do we need to get our shit together. For instance, there is a horrible drug problem that is prevalent through esports. That's right, Mom, even the fucking squares are doping up. There's been reports that competitive gamers use drugs like Adderall to give them an edge in tournaments. This started blowing up after a CSGO tournament when Corey Semphis Friesen admitted that his team, including himself, used Adderall for a tournament. Drugs that improve reaction time and cognition gives an incredibly unfair advantage to players. Well, unless the drugs make them just really fucking focus on organizing their inventory page. The Electronic Sporting League, or ESL, the largest esports event company in the world, is trying to crack down on the rampant use of amphetamines in esports, which can be difficult since, unlike most cases of drug enhancements in sports, many people actually need drugs like Adderall to function. Sexism has also slithered itself into esports. Back in the summer of 2014, a Finnish Hearthstone tournament had a rule that only allowed males to compete in their competition. The reason behind this inane rule was because the tournament was under IEF regulations. The International Esports Foundation, a company that's trying to establish an international standard for esports, thought it would be a great idea to ban half of its potential player base from their competitions because they wanted to be in accordance with the International Sports Committee. Fortunately, they overturned that rule, but just because the IEF has joined us in the 21st century doesn't mean that sexism was magically abolished in esports. There are still many reports of women not being treated as equals in games like Super Smash, Smite, and even Overwatch. Our story centers around a 17-year-old girl who was tearing shit up in a Korean Overwatch tournament. And yes, she was playing as Zarya. 2 of the players on the team she was raining death upon were indignant about how badly they were getting beaten by a girl, and they decided to report her to Blizzard for cheating. Now, while cheating is pretty rampant in esports, these 2 dinguses were so convinced that the Zarya was using hacks and mods that in between their bouts of threatening this teenager's life, they swore that if it turned out she wasn't cheating, they would cut their professional career short and quit Overwatch forever. And you could probably guess what happened next. That's right, our hero wasn't cheating. She dominated those man babies fair and square. And true to their word, both men hung up their particle cannons and retired from Overwatch. It's not just the players that need to get their shit together. We as an audience are notorious for being fuck-ups. During DreamHack Austin, Hearthstone player Terrence Miller had a pretty impressive showing and ended up in 2nd place. But of course, the internet had to ruin it for him. During his matches, the Twitch audience had to fill the chat with despicable and deplorable racist comments, so much that the moderators couldn't even catch up. What the fuck, folks? Look, I know that normal sports are filled with garbage and controversy, yet people look at them with high regard. Yes, doping, domestic abuse, rape convictions, and animal abuse happen. And yet most of the players and the sports walk away from these scandals just fine. But that doesn't mean we don't have to hold ourselves to a better standard. I wish this was all kind of newsworthy to you folks. You know, like being Dr. Bruce Banner in Spotlight, exposing the seedy underbelly of the gaming world. But I bet most of you who sat through this only thought to yourselves, yeah, the gaming community is filled with garbage people. No shit. Which is kind of the problem here. A good chunk of the problem surrounding legitimizing esports comes from the community that birthed it. We don't see it as a problem when a Smash player yanks their controller out and walks off stage without a friendly and respectable handshake to their competitor. Cause fuck that, they probably used corn to get you locked in a down tilt up tilt combo. Joking aside, this is absolutely unacceptable behavior in a competitive environment. I know toxic players are a small minority, but they're always the loudest and the ones that people hear about first. If we want the world to see the true potential that esports has to offer, then we need to change it from the inside, like a strange alien parasite that morphs the host into something new. But instead of turning into a sickening necromorph, we would turn into decent human beings. So if we want to see Dota 2 players standing next to a real-life merfolk Katie Ledecky at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, then we need to start taking ourselves more seriously. But even if we don't get into the 2020 Olympics, we will still always have ass. What do you folks think? What do we players need to do to help legitimize esports? Let us know in the comments below. And be sure to like and subscribe and follow us for more of our crazy video game antics. And to wrap it all up, here's one of our favorite what the fuck moments in gaming.